Police.
Yeah, there's somebody after me.
I'm sorry?
There's somebody after me.
Where are you?
There's somebody after me.
11 bodies were found on a desolate stretch of Gilgo Beach, New York in 2010 and 2011. 9 women, a man, and a toddler.
Investigators surround Rex Heuermann's Massapequa Park home and continue to confiscate evidence, both here and at 2 storage rental units nearby.
Cortese is here now with more on how a discarded pizza crust helped the detectives tie all of this evidence together.
Rex Heuermann is a demon that walks among us, a predator.
Welcome to the Occult Rejects. What is going on, everybody? Hope you're all doing well. I'm coming back at you with a little update. I guess it kind of goes along with the Gilgo Beach stuff. Well, it does go along with the Gilgo Beach stuff in the past. And I'm not sure if a lot of people would even know that's happened because it's kind of like a New York thing. But there was a police chief, James Burke, that was around when the original Gilgo Beach stuff had happened. And there was a lot of, I guess, stuff being said about him, too, around that time. There was a lot of accusations. There was supposedly things that he had done. There was just even weird stuff that, was weird to the people and to the public at the time, that you asked the FBI to come down and help with the Gilgo Beach. And then when they got there, you told them to take a hike, and you didn't want to hand them anything. It was just very weird how that happened. And there was also happened around the time where, in Long Island, there was a lot of rumors going around about possibly police involvement. I mean, I think that even made the news, or people had thought might have been police involvement. So, all these things going around and being said just made the whole situation just kind of look worse, If people are thinking there might have been police involvement and now the feds show up and you tell them to leave, does that make it look like you're trying to hide the police involvement? If you had your car broken into recently and then brought the kid down to, I think, I already forgot what town it was, because I don't think it was maybe actually done inside his police precinct. Well, whatever, brought him down to whoever and questioned him and roughed up the kid because he was making accusations of finding snuff films and drugs and all sorts of weird shit in the car that he just stole out of, his car. So a lot of weird things were going on, and this guy just got arrested again yesterday. He's been jailed before, and we'll get into that because of that situation I was just talking about with beating up the kid, Christopher. But we'll get into that later on. But I just find it very interesting how going back to somebody who I thought was a very shady character and had a lot of weird things going on about his name and circling around him, and just shady connections, is now all of a sudden in the spotlight again when Gilgo Beach rears its ugly head back in society 13 years later. I'm going to pull up the article, and Lisa's going to read off the most current one, and then I'll be going back to, I think, 2016 article about the original situation with James. Here we go.
Okay. So it's a CBS News article. A former police chief who once led Gilgo Beach probe charged with soliciting sex from undercover ranger at Long Island Park. A former suburban New York police chief who once led the Gilgo Beach killings investigation and later went to prison for beating a suspect was arrested again Tuesday after authorities say he attempted to engage in sex with an undercover ranger at a Long Island park. To me, that kind of sounds like it was set up, but anyway, James Burke, Suffolk County Police Chief from 2012 to 2015, was arrested around 10:15 a.m. at Vietnam Veterans Memorial Park in Farmingville after exposing himself to the ranger and saying he was interested in oral sex, according to the arrest report obtained by the Associated Press. The Vietnam Veterans Memorial Park thing brings me back to the whole body, the victim of the body that was found, that it was an Asian male dressed in women's clothing. I don't know, that kind of sparked that whole thing.
You know what I do just want to mention real quick that I do wonder about, and I need to look into it. Maybe I can jump on duty, Ron, if he does it live and ask him. Because I actually listened to his show on this to see if he'd mentioned something about it. Because he even finds this very interesting and weird. The park ranger. I'm wondering, does that now make it federal?
Ooh. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, because
Interesting.
it can. So I'm just wondering.
That would change the dynamics of that real quick.
Yeah.
If it was. Okay, continue on. Burke, 58, then attempted to leverage his status as a former law enforcement official to get out of the arrest, which was part of a targeted operation spurred by complaints about people soliciting sex in the park, officials said at a news conference today. So that kind of says it was kind of an operation, right? It's a targeted operation. As he was being taken into custody, Burke asked the Rangers if they knew who he was and told them that getting arrested would be a public humiliation for him. Sergeant Brian Quattrini said the Ranger who arrested Burke did not recognize him, Quattrini added. Burke is charged with offering a sex act, public lewdness, indecent exposure, and criminal solicitation, Suffolk County Police Commissioner Rodney Harrison said. Burke was taken to a police station for processing. Information on his arraignment wasn't immediately available. Burke's lawyer in his previous case died last year. It wasn't immediately clear if he had a lawyer who could speak on his behalf regarding Tuesday's arrest. The Suffolk County District Attorney's Office did not respond to a request for comment. So let's get back into some of the old stuff. Burke led the Suffolk County Police Department for a tumultuous 3-year period that culminated in his arrest and guilty plea to federal charges for beating and handcuffing a handcuffed man suspected of stealing pornography, sex toys, and other items from his department SUV. Inside the courtroom during Burke's sentencing in 2016, his victim, Christopher Loeb, locked eyes with Burke and said, "You abused your power, and I will never again feel safe living in Suffolk County." 1010 wins, Carol Doherty reported. I don't know what that is. Your abuse of power and the public's trust is appalling. You told me no one would believe me, Loeb added. The scandal also toppled the country's longtime district attorney and county's top corruption prosecutor, who were convicted of helping Burke cover up the beating. During his tenure, Burke oversaw the high-profile investigation into the deaths of multiple sex workers whose remains were found in the area of Gilgo Beach on a desolate stretch of Long Island coastline. Burke has been criticized over the handling of the investigation by other law enforcement officials who said he blocked the department's cooperation with the federal authorities. Rex Heuermann, a man suspected of committing at least 3 of the killings, was arrested earlier this summer. Burke resigned in late 2015, just before federal prosecutors charged him in the beating and cover-up that put him behind bars. He served 40 months in prison and was released in 2019. His probation ended last year. Former Suffolk County District Attorney Thomas Spada, 81, and the chief of Spada's Anti-Corruption Bureau, Christopher Partland, 57, are both serving 5-year prison sentences for witness tampering, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy. Spada and Burke had a kinship that dated to the ex-chief's teenage years in the late 1970s, when he was a star witness in a murder case that Spada was prosecuting.
How convenient.
Burke,
isn't that?
I know. That is, when I read that, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Yeah, that's just as weird as like the Kopecker and Kohlberger situation.
Yeah,
almost like
exactly.
Or even how like I really shouldn't. I don't even need to include the Kohlberger, even just Kopecker's situation with where the I think with the guy who's in charge of the case was actually in the service with him.
Yeah, they served together.
What?
Yeah, I think there was the same. Yeah, Okay. Burke started out as a New York City police officer in the mid-1980s, but soon moved to the Suffolk County Department, one of the largest suburban forces in the country with 2,500 officers. Before he became chief, Burke had survived an internal department probe in 1995, first reported by Newsday, that concluded he had a relationship with a woman engaged in prostitution and drug dealing and had engaged in sex acts in police vehicles while on duty and in uniform.
He was a busy guy.
Yeah. Very.
Yeah.
He was doing his efforts on outreach. Just kidding. That was a horrible joke.
One thing I do want to add about even the place that he got caught at, in my opinion. Well, growing up in Long Island, and I was not too far away from all these places. But like it was always known and like even joked about to an extent that like if you live on Long Island and you're near the Long Island Expressway, there is carpooling parking lots on some random exits. Those were always known, not so much for prostitution, but more for gay men to go find other willing gay men. Sometimes just right there on the spot. I mean, you pretty much got like Pee Wee Herman type stuff going on where there's dudes tugging on it, waiting for somebody to come over and help them. Some crazy, wild, you heard crazy stories about stuff that would happen at these things. And Bald Hill is no different. Bald Hill is known for that stuff. You can, not trying to promote the guy, whatever, but I mean, Duty Ron, he's an ex-cop. And he was even mentioning on his show when he was a cop, it's known. That place was known for stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was a pickup area or like solicitation area. So I'm sure this cop knew that.
No, I mean, one almost thinks that did he already know he was meeting somebody there, right? I mean, why show up at 10:15 in the morning? I mean, I don't know. And then it was part of a sting operation, according to the CBS News article. But yeah, I mean.
Yeah, so I just found that very weird. And that's the thing, too. It's like people are also saying, are they going to start going through his phones? Like, I don't know, like, the actual situation. Like, if he was supposed to be meeting somebody else there, are they going to look to see who that was? Like, who knows how he actually got caught? But could there be a reason to go into the phone? And if he's been talking about anything with the Gilgo case, will they be privy to that through texts and stuff or in phone conversations? Who knows? Yeah. Phone calls. But, I mean, I guess we'll see. But I just found this very weird and interesting that this is now happening. And then I do also want to bring up a little bit about what happened with the other stuff from a few years ago with Christopher. Pull that up and then pretty much just wrap it up. I just think it's weird. And this cop, again, like I'm saying, that place is known. Bald Hill is known for that stuff. This cop, they even mentioned in this last article, was associated with some weird stuff. And then getting into this guy has like sexual things and like possible prostitution connections. So it's just very weird considering the Gilgo case itself too.
Right. Even Reddit, like if you read some of the Reddit posts or whatever, they talk about Bald Hill and they talk about that area being notorious, just like you were saying. And then, going on about the history with this case.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. This guy seems like this stuff would be right up his alley. Ex-Suffolk County Police Chief James Burke sentenced to 46 months in prison. This is from November 2nd, 2016. Central Islip, New York. A former Long Island police chief charged with beating a handcuffed man for stealing embarrassing items from his department vehicle and then covering it up was sentenced to 46 months in prison Wednesday. Before the sentencing, ex-Suffolk County Police Chief James Burke apologized to police, the judge, the victim, and the people of the community. With time served, he'll spend 35 months behind bars. Inside the courtroom, his victim, Christopher, how do you say his Loeb, I guess?
Loeb.
I think. Yeah. I've heard his name mentioned so many times, too, and I forgot.
Yeah.
Locked eyes with Burke and said, "You abused your power, and I will never again feel safe living in Suffolk County." 1010 Wins, Carol Dioria reported. "Your abuse of power and the public's trust is appalling. You told me no one would believe me," Loeb added. U.S. District Court Judge Leonard Wexler said Burke's crimes went beyond the beating and affected the entire 2,000-member police department. "I feel Mr. Burke acted as a dictator," the judge said, as the former chief sat stoically with his hands folded in front of his chin. He noted that more than 80 people had written letters seeking leniency and calling Burke a good man who helped many people in a 31-year career. But Wexler said he also did bad if you were not on his side. That's corruption. Burke pleaded guilty to the charges and had asked to be sentenced to probation so he could take care of his mother, who was battling cancer and is in a wheelchair. Between both of these things, you got cancer going on. Wow. Prosecutors said Burke has two brothers who can care for their mother, and that one of their brothers was already living in her home. So I guess they were trying to say, like, that's bullshit.
He was using his mom. He's using his mom to get out of prison.
My client is going to do his time like a man, and he's going to come out and be a productive member of society, Burke's attorney.
Oh, he was
John.
productive, all right.
So, he ends up getting sentenced to that. One thing I do want to mention that I had heard last night, which I thought was wild, Duty Ron had said it. Even when he went to prison for this, and let's say he, goes to prison again for this guy is still going to be getting his pension.
No way.
When he was in jail the first time, he had his pension going into his commissary.
I thought
he was getting $145,000 sent to him, being given to him as a convicted cop.
Now, is that a county state thing?
I have no idea.
That you still get your pension regardless? Negotiation, probably, his lawyer.
All right, let me go into this a little bit.
Taxpayer.
Yeah, that's wild, right? Yeah. Officers subpoenaed by FBI agents investigating the 2012 beating were brought in and interrogated about whether they had talked, prosecutors said. Some were warned that if they admitted wrongdoing, their union would not pay their legal fees. A commanding officer was assigned to warn witnesses that they could face retribution if they cooperated. A union official falsely told several officers that Burke and other high-ranking Suffolk County law enforcement authorities had secretly obtained copies of FBI memos containing the names of people speaking with investigators. As a result, officers who were present for the beating or heard Burke brag about it at a Christmas party stayed quiet for years. Prosecutors said one lied in court and said the attack had not happened. At least 11 current or former police officers and detectives who had previously remained silent about the beating testified before the grand jury that indicted Burke. Witnesses said that Chief went out of control after the handcuffed suspect called him a pervert during an interrogation, punching, screaming, cursing, and threatening to kill him with a heroin overdose. Burke became chief of the Suffolk County Police Department in 2012 after having served for nearly a decade as the chief investigator for Suffolk County District Attorney Thomas Spada. Prosecutors called Burke's time as chief a reign of terror. They said he kept liquor in his office and regularly drove drunk. He had subordinates conduct surveillance on his girlfriends, prosecutors said. In 2013, he had a contractor illegally put a GPS device on a high-ranking civilian police official he disliked, hoping to gather information that he could use for blackmail, according to the presenting letter. Ooh. Internal Affairs reports also found Burke had engaged in sexual acts in police vehicles and had a sexual relationship with a convicted felon known to be actively engaged in criminal conduct, including the possession and sale of illegal drugs, prostitution, and larceny. Yeah, so this guy...
That's horrible.
That's what I'm saying. It's just weird. And
it's so shady.
That this was big around the whole time, with... Just stuff with him was, like, kind of big with the Gilgo Beach stuff, and... Now again with him, and now again with Gilgo. It's just very weird,
Well, it kind of, I think I had sent you a message about that. You remember Rex got hit with conspiracy charges, and somebody had also made a mention that there should be more arrests coming. And I wonder if maybe this is, part of that. Granted, he was arrested on something totally different, but is this a way to kind of get him in and start questioning him? You know, I don't know. It's just like a tactic, kind of, so to speak. But I was going to also mention, kind of like a sidebar, that there was, so Reddit's kind of been blowing up since, you know, the whole.
You get some interesting
arrest.
stuff on there, actually.
Yeah, I think so too. A lot of people don't like Reddit, and I can see why, but sometimes it kind of sparks.
I'm not a huge fan of it
something.
myself, but sometimes there is some interesting stuff on there.
I mean, I will say this, it'll spark a keyword or something, and I'll start down a rabbit hole, and I'm like, wow, yeah, I'd not thought about that way.
What's actually interesting, just a little fun fact, a lot of huge, big shows, and like, I'm not knocking them, I think they do some great work, but a lot of shows do actually pull info off of Reddit and just retype it up.
Yeah. You know,
it's a known thing, honestly.
You know,
I don't think people who aren't podcasting would know that. Well,
I will say this, like if you get your stuff from Reddit, I would knock it too, so that nobody else can get their ideas as well from Reddit. Yeah. But as if that's my source. But I was going to read you something that I found on Reddit that I found a little bit interesting. So somebody posted, and do you mind if I read the quick blip?
Go for it.
Okay. So it says, I believe Rex was working with John Bittrolf. It can't be a coincidence that Bittrolf killed someone whose daughter's best friend Rex killed. So all of a sudden, it's kind of like, you know, there's people saying that they saw two people in a green SUV, and then you have a 911 call later saying they're trying to kill me, and then you have this whole James Burke thing, kind of all happening around the same time. And so, of course, they're like, you know, what people are asking, you know, whatever. So the whole thing was that Bittrolf was convicted for killing a woman called Tangrini or something. Tangretti, I think.
I don't know how to say the name myself.
And so he was convicted for the murder of Tangrini. And Tangretti had a daughter, I believe, according to this, that was best friends with Bartholomew. And Bartholomew is one of the girls being, I guess her death is one of the charges against Rex. So it almost like, were they working together? Were they associates? And then you have in the bail application, Rex looking up information on Bittrolf. So,
right, yeah, he was looking him up.
I had no idea that those two were even associated. The murder victims, I had no idea they were associated. Again, that's a Reddit post. I cannot verify or anything like that on that, but I think it's worth, you know, maybe even spending some time looking into it, which I will.
Yeah, but, after the fact, right? Yeah.
But and so it almost you have to question, okay, if potentially they were working together, could it be that Burke was working also with them? And you know, FBI comes in, they kind of shoo them away, and as soon as Burke leaves or Burke is arrested, FBI is back on scene. So
yeah, you know, unfortunately, I mean, it could just really. I mean, just be very simple that this guy just happened to approach the wrong person. But not knowing yet exactly, like, how this went down, it's kind of hard to, I guess, even...
speculate.
Yeah. You know, and like I even said, I think it is... Again, I mean, I don't know how it would work. I don't know, like, because of what that place is considered... Is it gonna, like, could cops even go in there and arrest somebody? Does it have to be done by a park ranger? I don't know if there's, like, stupid little laws like that, but, like, I do wonder now if that's, like, a federal charge, you know, or it can be.
Yeah.
You know, and then that could make it a whole different situation. Because believe it or not, with some federal charges, if it's like a sexual one, the thing is, if it's federal, you're going to get knocked with 5 years regardless.
Oh, wow.
So, like, making a sex crime federal could actually hit somebody with more time at first, because depending on how, you know, small it would be considered in state or county. Wow. You know, so, like, if again, like, and I'm just playing into the whole, like, conspiracy, I guess, you know, is this a way to question him? I could see if maybe now it being federal, you'd be like, oh, shit, like, I'm looking at 5 years, like, without anything.
Right. Right.
Yeah, maybe if I can tell you some stuff, I might, who knows? That could be a scare tactic.
It just seems a little bit sloppy that all of this stuff is going on with Rex, the Gilgo thing, and you're going to show up at a veteran's place. Like, you can't pick another place to meet.
Yeah. Well, I
don't know.
Like I said, like they're even like it's a known place,
right? And
like the cops know too. Like they're not naive to it.
I would think that he would be smarter than that. That's just my. Considering everything that's going on right now with the media and the coverage of it.
See, and this is like what I like sometimes like think like, like if you lived on Long Island and you saw this, and if you've lived here like most of your life or whatever, older, like my age or whatever, you're going to automatically know like what I'm saying, that those things are known. Spots for that, and it's like why would even an ex-cop even think of going there? Like they should know, like cops know to check that shit.
Right.
Outside of New York or even Long Island or possibly even Suffolk County, outside of that, would you even know? So like to you, you'd be like, oh shit, like wow, this guy just got popped for like doing so and so or trying to do so and so, and like people that live around there would be like, but that like we would know that it's like kind of sloppy and dumb and doesn't make any sense for a cop.
Right. Right.
So it's like sometimes is that like the silliness of the situation when they spin storylines for you.
Yeah.
Would a person in the know kind of realize how silly and theatrical this is, but to the unknowing, the person who doesn't know, isn't from there, doesn't know, is just seeing an image and being told what's what, it makes sense to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows? Right. Is that all part of like little magic? Who knows?
Yeah. And I mean, the whole Christopher Loeb thing, it's interesting because I think they said that why would a cop beat up this kid over a bag of toys? Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think further in the Reddit post, they were talking about that some of the films may have been much more than just simple pornography. And that's why he was very aggressive towards getting the stuff back. Or teaching him a lesson because potentially the videos themselves were not just simply pornography.
According to Christopher, and I've heard him say it many of times out of his own mouth, his own posts, his own old stuff. According to him, I'm not making this up, there was seemed to be violence and possibly snuff. That's what he thought was being shown in some of these videos. So that's why he
viewed them.
Yeah, he saw these things because he checked them out. Wow. And that's why he was like very, very scared about saying anything, is because like he knew that like if that's what was really on there, and he had that stuff on these discs, and you knew somebody just stole that shit out of your car or your vehicle. Yeah. You now know that there's a good chance they probably know like serious, horrible stuff about you.
Right.
That, you know what I'm saying? So I could maybe see that's why he reacted the way he did once he got the kid in.
Yeah. Yeah. I could see that for sure.
But who knows, but that is Christopher's. Yeah, that is what Christopher's saying. That those discs did include stuff like that. And then real quick, to just wrap this up, this wasn't meant to really be a whole episode, just a quick thing because this is... this was a quick thing just because it's, in the news and it's very interesting to me. And again, it's going back to Gilgo Beach, which I do find to be very weird in itself. Mm-hmm. Just real quick, I'm not even going to pull it up. I'm just going to mention a few things. Bald Hill, I did run that in numbers. You get 84, 360, and 60. Those I know that I have gotten for stuff. It may not have been this series. It could have even have been stuff in the Eyeball series, but I know for a fact I have seen those numbers, and there's, even like looking at the screen, I can tell from the link being a different color that I've looked at that number before. But real quick, it does match. I found interesting. Does match keys. And we have been, finding keys over and over and over again with the Gilgo Beach. I think probably every episode that we covered, running numbers, I mentioned key at least once, per episode. So.
More than once, for sure.
Yeah. And it even matches police, too, which I thought was interesting. It matches police, the 360 and the 60 in English, and it does match, like I said before, keys. And maybe we are onto something. Maybe this is part of the storyline, and who knows what it is. But 360 and 60 does match Reddit. So... maybe we should just disregard everything on Reddit as well. Maybe that's just part of the spiderweb storyline.
Yeah. Well, that's an advertisement for Reddit. If I've ever heard a better one. But
that's funny. That's interesting that Reddit came up too. All right, but I was just gonna toss that in. And did I see? Oh, Kings shows up too. Rex is king. So. It's interesting. All right, I'm going to stop. Okay. And we're going to end this episode. I'm probably going to just be dropping this as soon as I get done making this extra episode. I know not everybody's deal is true crime, and especially this case. So that's why I'm going to drop this as an extra one. So people are interested, check it out. If you're not, you don't have to worry about it. Got some, is there anything coming up that we could maybe promote that we're going to be working on soon with the Occult?
I believe we were going to do, I think you had mentioned the Order of Cincinnatus was one, and then we talked about, potentially, I don't know if you want to mention this, looking into Plum Island.
Yes. We're going to be doing that. Yeah, Plum Island, Lyme disease.
And the godfather of Plum Island is very interesting, to say the least. So
yeah, that's going to bring us back to Nazis as well, and pre-World War II. And it was funny to shout out to my pops, actually. Not that I don't know if he'll hear this, but like he was telling me, he just happened to come over one day this week and was telling me a whole bunch of stuff about Long Island. And I was like, really? And like I was like looking it up, and I was like, like he wasn't like making shit up. This wasn't gossip. Like my father's actually telling me real shit that was going on with Long Island. And like I've always known Long Island to always just have like weird tales, stuff with Brookhaven Labs, Plum Island, stuff washing up on shore. Island. Yeah, stuff with Fire Island with the deers and the ticks and just weird stuff. And like you even see that stuff brought up in American Horror Story this last season. So to me, like I do find that like just very weird. Like they're even focusing on deers, ticks, and diseases being spread. And then like there's stories of that with Long Island, and somehow there's Nazi scientists behind it. Who would have thought?
Who would have thought? Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that one. It may not be as like ooh and ah with like the destruction and carnage, because we're only talking about like ticks and stuff. But I do find it interesting how that we'll be showing like the Nazis being involved in Long Island and doing shady stuff here prior to World War II. It's like of course, in my backyard. It's always I always say the weird shit. A lot of weird shit always seems to like involve New York somehow.
Well, the Nazis were heavily into the occult, and why they picked Long Island. I mean, they were wanting to establish an entire freaking colony system.
Well, we had goddamn Joseph Smith upstate. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, that's enough. The guy started Mormonism, and it's a cult. I mean, please.
They're in Long Island, isn't it? Like, what is it? Cold Harbor was the headquarters of the eugenics.
Oh.
So, yeah. I mean, you have all that going on.
Yeah, a lot of weird stuff with Long Island, and I've thought about covering it. So, and after my father started telling me some of this stuff, and I checked it, and I was like, this dude was on point. And I told you about it, and I know me and Lisa have talked about it. I don't remember what brought it up, but there was something. I remember me and you had a conversation in the past real quick about something with deers and ticks.
Lyme disease.
And like you thinking stuff was like changed and this and that. Yeah. And then somehow I was like, now my father's like telling me the same thing. And I was like, I asked you about it, and you're like, oh, yeah. I'm all over this if you want to cover this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah,
that's definitely happening. That's going to be on probably the NY Patriot show. That will be a topic that me and her will be covering. We got something coming up with Cincinnati with the Headless Giant, and I think Teresa's going to join us too, and possibly Colby. And a couple other things in the works too. And eventually we will be getting back to the brain. So I don't want people to think that we forgot about that. It's just there's other things coming up between the eyes and the brain that we want to take care of first.
For sure.
Yes. All right. And thank you very much. And until the next one, everybody be well. Later.